It's easy to micromanage, to get into the weeds and want to have your hand in everything. There's too much going on to do that.
Hey, this is Anthony Kim, and welcome to my new series called Shaping the Future. I talk to leaders all over the country, and today I talked to Corby King at Putnam County. And Corby and I talk about a couple things. One is just thinking about the big picture, making sure that we get out of the way of people that are working with us. And two, setting the condition for other people to be successful. And then three, just being active in the community, getting to know your community, knowing what their needs are. So as a leader, I think Corby has a lot to say, and you're going to enjoy this conversation. See you on the other side. Welcome, Corby. I'm excited to have you here for this series of Shaping the Future, Leaders Shaping the Future, so critical to where we're taking education. So thank you for being here from Putnam County, Tennessee.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on today, Anthony.
I was just taken by our conversation around how leadership creates boundaries for people so that they could go off and do the thing. And then, we're all aligned and moving forward. And I think that's the dream that we all have as leaders where, it's just like you have this clear vision and everybody's off executing. But as you and I talked, like the boundaries for you versus the boundaries for me versus somebody else on our team is just very different. So can you just kind of recap what we talked about a little bit and how you think about aligning people's boundaries so that we're all working on the same things?
Sure. The key to aligning those boundaries, I have to know within myself what my expectations are, what the expectations of the community, what the expectations of our school board members, what they want for our students and for our school system. And then I create that big picture. I create the boundaries, and we have supervisors who are responsible for various pieces of this puzzle. And so I set the boundaries, the guideposts for them, and then just get out of the way and let them do their job. We have checkpoints along the way. And if it's something that I'm not comfortable with, we come back and we have a conversation about that. And it's just talking to each other, sitting down and making sure that we stay on the same page throughout the process.
I've heard so many other leaders, superintendents say the same things, but the results are very different from what you're getting. And so what is the difference between, although you're saying the same things, you're getting much better results in your district, and what do you attribute to that?
It's easy to get bogged down in the details. And from the superintendent level, I can't do that. I can't afford to get caught up in the weeds. That's where I have the supervisors, the principals. They have to see that part. So we set the goal because it's easy to micromanage, to get into the weeds and want to have your hand in everything. There's too much going on to do that. So that's where I have to trust those folks. And again, you have to hire the right people, and it has to be their personality. They have to want to lead and go along with the direction that we set. If it's somebody that doesn't agree that we're going in the right direction and we can't come to an agreement, maybe they need to find somewhere else that they can serve better for the students. But it's really just getting the right people and talking to them and making sure that we communicate regularly and we stay on the same page.
One thing that I think I wanted to just get into a little bit is so often I think when we think about having, quote, the people around us and the right people, like you said, or people that can work well in your environment, just because they don't work well in your environment doesn't mean that they're not going to be successful somewhere else.
Absolutely.
And sometimes it helps them if you could allow them to see that they could be more successful in a different condition if you really believe that everybody has the potential to be great in the right conditions. So how do you really set that condition as a leader? Because I feel like that's really important. And how do you communicate that to people that aren't successful in that condition?
It is. And, that's one of the most difficult things, because those are some really challenging, difficult conversations. It comes to a point where whatever reason, when I'm communicating, if you've got a room, and I'll use the example, 15 supervisors in a room and 12 or 13 are hearing the same message you're communicating, and you've got that one or two that just continually is not getting the same message. I have to challenge myself first to work with them and see, okay, how can I communicate this better so that you're on page? Because everybody else is hearing the message the same way I intend it to be heard. And if that person's not, then we just have to have a direct conversation. I tend to try to be very clear. I'm pretty open. I don't, it might come across a little harsh sometimes. I don't want to, but I think you have to be direct. You have to be fair with people. And if it's not meeting my expectation, then I have to let them know that. And it's on me to let them know, but then support them in the good things. And when they're doing well, support them.
Yeah, that reminds me when, I remember when I got my first kind of quote, like management job or something like that, right? And you think you want that role, but then you realize it's a lot of tough conversations. And a lot of times you, as a leader, you have to put yourself in a situation that you're not comfortable with, because there's a lot of times I'm just not comfortable having those conversations, even though I know I need to talk to them, right? And so you build anxiety and doing all that. And so what tips do you have for kind of new leaders, new managers, as to how to get through that? Because obviously, you've gotten through that kind of initial stage, and I still have it even after all these years, but I'm able to handle it a lot better than when I was, 25.
Yeah. It's still, it's an uncomfortable part of the job. For me to be able to sleep at night, I have to know that I have given them multiple opportunities, and I've tried that. I've come back and communicated my expectations and given them an opportunity to meet those and talk again. Have we had that opportunity to make adjustments? And at some point, if it's just not working, then you have to be upfront with them and say, okay, this isn't working. But it's not easy. I wish I could say that there's a way to do it. I just know for me, I have to have a process, and it's over a time. It's not a rash decision. It's not something that happens. They upset me today, so I'm going to go let them have it. No, it's not that. I try to approach it in a positive manner and in a calm. I'm not going to have that conversation when I'm upset. Let me get calmed down, wait a day or two, and it might not be as big a deal as I thought it was early on. And it might be that they're not as far off the path that I wanted, that it seemed to begin with. So how can we just kind of small correction and get back on path? But if it seems that we continue to have these miscommunications, it may just be that we're not going to work well together in this particular setting. So.
Yeah, I definitely notice when, there's some people that it's easier for me to just communicate with it. Something is just like the synapses are connecting and it's easy to talk to them. Yes. And other people, it's just a struggle, and, you're working at it. Right. So I get where you're coming from. I think what what that reminds me of, though, is the other piece of the conversation, how, you say you like to provide straight talk and, actually frequent conversations. Also, you're talking a little bit about that. But it's so hard and challenging to do that when it's easier for us to have those conversations with people that it already connects with than the people, right? And so how do we do that?
Absolutely. And I tend to find myself sometimes avoiding those conversations or avoiding going to that office and sitting down as often as I need to, because it is going to be uncomfortable. And it's just one of those things that you have to push yourself to do. I usually, spend 2 or 3 days talking myself through the conversation. What's it going to be like? Trying to anticipate their side of the situation, so that not that I'm building my defense or my argument. I just want to stick to what's best for the students. Here's what I expect. Here's the direction we were supposed to go. Where did we get off? Where do we get off base here? Talk to me about how we're not aligned. And let's see if we can come to, okay, we've got to get back over here to the middle a little bit. And it's not an easy conversation. And I really have to push myself to go sit down and do that, because you're right. The people that it's easy to talk to, you go to those offices more often, or they come see you more often. And
yeah. I think you bring up a great point, which is that a lot of times people don't see what the leaders are going through to have those conversations. They often think you just kind of do it off the cuff, but
No,
it's, constant thinking about it. It's sometimes agonizing, right?
but you
Over
know
this.
that you know that the really difficult conversations. It impacts not only them but their family. This is a job for them. It's income. It's a family. These are not easy conversations for any of us to have in leadership. So you really want to try to help support and coach and get them on the right page before you have to have that really difficult conversation. And it is agonizing, and we do lose sleep over that. And it's just not something that you want to find yourself in that position.
Right. And just going back to what we talked about earlier, I think that if you don't actually practice having conversations with folks that you don't regularly talk to, when the time comes where you need to have a serious conversation, it makes it even more uncomfortable.
Yes, it does. It does. And oftentimes what we find, if you're in a smaller school system setting, something like that, you're also friends with these people. So these are colleagues that we've worked with for several years, that you know them, you know their family, and you're friends with them. And it's just for whatever reason, we have different vision, a different outlook on how things should be.
Yeah, I mean, I think the last question I have, I think this would be relevant for a lot of the districts that, I work with and know about are, I mean, a lot of districts are in the situation you mentioned where you have had work relationships for several years, but also you live in the community together and you're going to see them. And perhaps in a lot of situations, like, the district is kind of the largest employer. And so a large percentage of the community works at the district. Yeah. So those are really, really complex conversations and difficult decisions you have to make. And like, what are some tips you have for other district leaders that are in that situation where the community is embedded right into the school's day-to-day operations like that?
I think you have to know the community. You have to be in the community yourself, be an active participant within the community, be at events, go to eat with them, go to church, get to know the folks who are there, go to the local restaurants, go to the ball games, attend the events that your families are attending, be in the schools, be visible. And just so you kind of keep a pulse on that and continually talking and finding out what the community expectations are. Those are the things that kind of help me along the way. Just knowing kind of what our parents expect, know how our students are doing. And so when I'm having those conversations, if it's not what's best for students, or if we've got issues, we try to put the fires out before they become a fire. Put it out if it's smoldering a little bit. Let's put those flames out. Let's not let that catch on fire. Get to know them, and it just kind of leads to the success of the team, I think.
Yeah, no, I think you bring up a great point there, because a lot of leaders talk about community engagement and stuff, but really, the community just needs to get to know you and know your values and know that you have the best interests at heart, and so they're not making judgment calls on you based off of, other things that they may have heard or not heard. And so I think that's really important, that humanization, that relationship part. We all talk about relationships, but those connections and the sharing personal aspects of your life is essential for those relationships to be strong.
Yes, absolutely. Especially in a smaller community where you're a part of that. You have to be a part of the community just to stay on the same page, to meet their expectations.
Yeah.
It's the kid, it's their kids. It's not just ours. And I've got kids in the system too. So I know kind of what I expect as a parent, and I want to know what the other parents expect as well.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Corby. He really got me thinking about, how do I set the conditions to make people around me successful? So I hope that was helpful. If you have thoughts on who should be in this series, please let me know. Put it in the comments below, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace.